So in Ross's case, where the owner wanted 10 million for the network, 5 million for the real estate, which comes out to valuation at $15 million. And I know that you guys are going to be paying $8 million for it. Will you be trying to get financing for $15 million for the whole thing? And
no.
So only for 8.
Well, I mean, we're going to get financing enough to cover, take money out, and have a working capital.
Okay. So, because here's a question, one question that we had, that Joe had, which is legitimate, I think. We're buying 100% of the real estate.
Right.
And all of this $8 million, the seller is taking back paper for $5 million.
Yes.
So what Joe is saying is, the seller take a paper for $5 million, and then we take the same paper and sell it to the bank for $5 million.
And not have any money in the deal. Or no equity in the deal.
Yeah,
we're not going to have any equity in the deal anyway.
Right, but what he's saying though, he's selling the seller the same paper for $5 million, so he can hold up that paper, and it's that same paper that we know the seller has a lien on, and go to the bank and say we want to sell the same paper for $5 million.
Yeah, but well, I mean, first of all,
is that right?
No, it's not right. But I mean, the paper's already got a lien on it.
That's what it's saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
So when the lien is when that lien is by the seller, then you can't get any more dollars.
Unless he releases it, the lien is because the seller will be in first charge. He'll have the first lien on it. Unless he steps away from having first charge, then we can't hypothecate it.
I got you. So
just as a bank that has first charge will not allow a second charge. You have a mezz piece that wants a lien on all the property. It has to have permission for the first charge to have a lien. The first bank doesn't have to allow any refinancing. Doesn't have to allow any additional mezz piece. They have to approve it. But they normally approve it because they're first. Everybody else is second.
Right.
So they get to liquidate all the assets and pay themselves back, and whatever's left over, you can pay everybody else off.
So, I got a question for the property I'm looking at. So I talked to the owner. This $3 million property. They said they'd carry $1 million. So can I go to the bank and get like, over $2 million? And
yeah. Well, normally normally an owner. This is just Peña's rule of thumb. It has no basis in fact. Normally, when somebody will take back paper, in their mind, they're already getting paid 100% for what they think the company's worth. And whatever paper they get over 10 years or 40 years or whatever is icing on the cake. They don't think it's worth 15 million. If they're whatever they take up front is normally what they think the deal's worth. And if they get paid, it's just icing on the cake. And depending on how the agreement's structured, if you default, they just take the fucking thing back. There's guys in the oil business that have been selling stuff in installment sales and taking it back for 50 years. They sell it to Alex, or they sell it to Wee Man, or they sell it to Richard, who knows nothing about the industry, and they know in the next cycle they're going to go bankrupt, and they're going to get the property back. There's some sellers that won't allow you to put a bank to finance it. I'll finance it. Because then the bank will sell it off, but this way, when Richard defaults, or Alex defaults, or Wee Man defaults, I just take the shit back again, and in the next cycle, when the schmucks want to buy me, I'll sell them, don't let the banks in, I'll finance 100% of it. That's what the Hunts used to do.
Does it happen that if you have a deal, the bank loans you the money, and can they recall their loan?
Oh, well, I mean, if you're in default, they can recall the loan anytime. And as I told you, some banks will have what's called an embarrassment clause, whereby you do something, funky or ugly, and it's not, embarrassment's not the right word. They have another word for it. I mean, athletes have those kind of clauses. If you run naked and you get in trouble, they can cancel your contract. Well, banks normally have some sort of covenant in there to protect themselves against you doing fucking something outrageous. But, and there are literally guys in the oil patch in Oklahoma and in Texas, I mean, that have done this for 50 years. Sell it to Jake, he didn't know, he's a fucking moron. Sell it to him, he'll default the next cycle, then we'll just take it back from him. And then resell it to Richard, same thing. Then resell it to Ed, same thing. And they won't allow banks to get involved, because when they allow the banks will not make a loan unless they're first charged. That's not 100%, but most banks won't. Okay.
So in that scenario, if you have like $1 million company that you're buying, and the sellers say, you know what, I'll hold back 40%. So here you are, $600,000 that you're trying to get financing from the bank. In this circumstance, then you know, the bank will finance the 600. Is there any way to get more financing in order to, like, you know, cover your operating revenue that you're
Sure, you overfinance. You say you want 10 or 20% for working capital, capex, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So you want $750,000.
Got it.
Now, the deal that was described, the Pixar deal, the Nabisco deal, the AOL deal, and there was a couple others that were massively overpaid. The one that I use as an example is Nabisco. And I mentioned it a couple of days ago, but the same principle applies, in my judgment, to all of them. The reason why they overpaid, and there's a lot of stories, there's Steve Jobs and Pixar, but the bottom line is, why did the iBanks agree to raise all this additional money, either through debt and finance, debt and equity, if the value's not there? Fees. Nabisco was originally, I think, supposed to sell for $3 billion or something, and then when they're fighting now, and then it went up to $5.5 billion, then $7 billion, then $9 billion, and then I think it ultimately sold for 11.3 or 13.1 or something. Well, there was $5 billion in fees, and there was no fucking way and every major accounting firm, major law firm, had their lips on the nipple of that deal. There was no fucking way they were walking away from those fees. No fucking way. So the bonds and the various forms of finance that went to back the Nabisco deal, in my judgment, when it got over 5 or 6 billion, were all just pissing money down a rat hole, and they were fucking the bondholders, they were fucking the shit, everybody. The only one that got their money up front were the fees, because they were success fees that were financed. And there's tons of lawsuits about that, but still, I think, Nabisco. But Pixar, down the price, there's a whole bunch of them. And they're fee driven. But if you've got a 500-man law firm, and you've got $700 million billable, and you work on it 18 months, you're not going to walk away. No fucking way. And then you divested, as they say in Scotland, 40% of your manpower to work on this fucking hog, and you turn business away at the door. And so they're not going to kill that deal in any way, shape, manner, or form. So when I tell you success fees work, they work. But I guarantee somebody in this room, I can probably pick them, will try to do your first deal without success fees. I can probably, maybe two. I already know who the two. I could tell you the two, and you'd still do it. I could tell you why, emotionally, intellectually, and you'd still fucking do it. I could tell you how the cocksucker was gonna fucking crater, and you'd still do it. Because you can't help yourself. The default is so motherfucking strong because your mother you didn't suck her tit long enough, or you sucked her tit too long. Or you walked in on your parents humping one day. I mean, there's a million fucking reasons. I've heard them all. You can't help it.